navigate fear when taking risks as a business owner?
Let's see. I studied the law of attraction a lot right before, not necessarily because of, but just kind of happened that way with the universe. I studied that a lot before I started this plan. So a lot of it is blind faith and just confidence in my plan and knowing that what I'm doing is right for me and having a solid plan too helps combat fear when you know that you're moving into something that's well thought out and there's a clear path forward.
And what does that mean, studying the law of attraction?
I watched The Secret a lot. A lot. I actually was just watching a podcast interview with the woman that made that movie and wrote that book last night. And just every aspect of it resonated with me.
What was the biggest takeaway from that movie?
Oh my goodness. That all of your thoughts become realities and that you're in control of what your life is and your reality and in control of what you think.
100%. People don't realize how powerful our mind is,
Yeah.
you know? So you've been in the beauty industry for quite some time now. Mm-hmm. Recently, we've met and I had the privilege of touring your salon in Corktown, Detroit. Mm-hmm. How would you describe the purpose of your business beyond profit?
Ooh, that's a loaded question. There's so many things that motivate me beyond profit. Delivering a quality, service from an artistic perspective with artistic value, aesthetically for the community, and also it's really a wellness service too that we provide. It's self-care. It invokes confidence in people. Sometimes from the start to the end of the service, you can see a complete change in somebody's energy, and that's very rewarding. It's also a creative outlet for me, and it's now becoming a platform for other creatives that are starting out in the industry. And we are developing a really strong education program so that when those new artists are coming in, they have the fundamentals and the foundation to become strong artists. So really enriching all of those aspects of beauty and wellness in the community.
Mm-hmm. And, I feel like as a creative, we're often thrived by like how what we do impacts other people. What was that moment for you when you realized like, oh, this is for me?
Oh, that goes back. I was a fine arts major before I started doing hair.
No
temporarily.
Way. I know that about you.
I went to Wayne State briefly after graduating high school. When I was in high school, I was very, very involved in the fine arts programs that we had at the high school I went to.
What was your medium?
Well, that was part of my issue with fine arts is that I really couldn't settle on one thing. I like to do so many different things and try new things all the time. And I had really amazing art teachers when I was in high school. I'm still in contact with both of them. I do both of their hair, and I love them very much.
Do you know by chance the owner of James Oliver Coffee?
I don't.
She was a teacher at CCS.
Oh, wow.
Yeah,
amazing.
A photographer.
That's amazing.
And it's so interesting that a lot of artists end up going into entrepreneurship.
Yeah. Well, I wasn't sure, at the time that I graduated from high school, tuition rates were rising, and I wasn't really sure how to make a career out of the fine arts.
Yeah.
And I didn't have the luxury of time or financial resources to figure it out that way. So I left doing that and started working. And I found when I got to hair school that what I had was kind of all of the things that I enjoyed all in one. It was a creative outlet for me. I got to do different things every day and try new techniques and new things.
What shifted that kind of going into fine arts into hair? Like what drew you to hair?
It was a creative outlet that was more practical for me. So I had my daughter in that time, and I wanted a career. I was, bartending and waitressing, and I was making money fast, but I wanted to have a career, but I loved the social aspect of that, and that's another aspect that I get in hairdressing. Mm-hmm. So it's a little bit more practical, easier to make a living off of. It's a very social field, and it's a creative field. So it kind of...
And it's essentially your medium now.
It is my medium, yes.
That is so cool.
I actually, when I was in hair school, a little story, there was a woman that came in to speak that owned a salon, and she was she spoke about how much cosmetology is an art form.
Mm-hmm.
So much that she took a drawing class after years of doing hair and makeup. And in the class, at the end of the class, they hung all of their drawings up on the wall, the whole class, and hers was the most well done, and it was shaded and blended, and the lines were better. And it's all really from makeup, because you're doing the same things.
I tell everybody that art is literally connected to every single industry.
That's true.
That's why I feel like it is a melting pot and like such a perfect community to embed yourself into, because it touches everybody,
Yeah. One of those things that were in the podcast last night that I watched, she said that everybody is a creator.
Yeah.
Because everybody's creating their own life.
Yeah, 100%. And I feel like in order to be a successful entrepreneur, you also have to be a creative type of mind, Yeah. So Hudson Styling Co. is the very first Aveda salon in Detroit. And when I first met you, I was like, I don't know what that means. But as I did a little bit more research and digging into it, it's such a respected style around the world. And it being the very first one in Detroit, why did you find it to be such essential for that style of hair care experience, to be right in almost the heart, essentially, the heart of Detroit?
Yeah. So there have been other small salons, which for a long time there weren't a lot of salons in the downtown area, but there had been in the past little smaller salons that carried Aveda products. But we're the first Aveda lifestyle salon, so we're the only lifestyle salon, which means that we carry all of the products that Aveda have to offer, and we offer all of the Aveda services that are available.
How would you quickly describe to somebody that doesn't know what Aveda means? How would you describe that?
Well, like you said, it's a globally recognized brand. It's been around since the 70s. It's always been geared towards being extremely natural. Our products are 99% naturally derived and plant-based, and now 100% vegan. Even our hair color, the ingredients are all ethically sourced. The packaging is made from wind power. I think that they're just focused on all of the right things when it comes to making products in America or in the world, and it's in alignment with all of the values that I have as well.
So being kind of in the forefront of something that is so new or unfamiliar, I always say this all the time. It's like people have this idea that if you build it, they will come. Like curiosity will drive traffic, but that's not the case often. Mm-hmm. It's often like when you bring something new to the market, you have to work 10 times harder to first educate the market, and then not convince, but warm them up to the idea of at least trying it. Mm-hmm. Because once they try it and they fall in love with it, they're dedicated for life. Mm-hmm. So what was your approach when you knew this is something that this is the first in Detroit? How did you approach kind of the communication, or so to speak, marketing strategy when you were getting ready to launch the first ever Aveda salon in Detroit?
We have really, really been thriving on organic growth. I think there are so many different little aspects of quality in my business that we're able to connect one-on-one with our guests in the salon and really tell that story. I'm still working on, we're still a new business and still working on spreading the word about that. But I think a lot of the things really, really are important to me, and I really care about them. There's a lot of attention to detail, and they're important issues in the world. And I think once people know about them and know that we stand for those things, it kind of sells itself.
Mm-hmm. Often the power of word of mouth is so undervalued, and also experience. I feel like for me, if I go to the same coffee shop every day, it's because it's consistent. They always make the coffee the same. Or if I go wherever I go, it's consistent. What piece of advice would you offer to or provide to another entrepreneur to maintain a level of consistent positive experience for your guests? What do you often strive? What do you tell your team? Make sure, do you have a checklist? How do you approach that consistent positive experience?
Within the salon, I think that falls into the category of education. So we're a very education-based company. We have a couple amazing educators on our team that do a lot of in-salon coaching and training, and we do monthly classes. Sometimes we have Aveda educators come from out of state or out of town, and teach for us. And sometimes we have our educators that are in-house host a class. And I think that technical training really keeps everybody on the same page.
Mm-hmm.
And that's another reason that I like being lifestyle salons. That tier of Aveda salons means that we exclusively use Aveda products in their systems and protocols. And so I think just having that consistency in what we're using every day and the protocol that we're using to provide the services creates the consistency.
I think even that word that you've mentioned a couple times, lifestyle brand.
Yeah.
I think having that association and recognition of this is who we are helps kind of with the education process of maintaining that level of output every time. How would you describe, how do you describe to your team what the lifestyle salon is?
Exclusive.
Exclusive.
We're exclusive to Aveda. So there are other salons that are not a lifestyle in that category, and they might carry other product lines or use other color lines or other, different techniques. And for me personally, I like to have the consistency across the board of just working, and we have everything that we need.
So when you're getting ready to open up a new brand, I can relate to this as well. There's so many different echoes in your mind of what could go wrong or why you shouldn't do it. What were those noises in your head bouncing back and forth before you decided no, I'm just going to do this?
My goodness, there were very many. I'm a single mother, starting all of this on my own. So there were so many times that I could have given up on it. And I actually really, really geared up and was ready to take a big step in February of 2020. And
wow.
That was going to be a really big, defining moment of whether or not this was going to work or actually happen.
Mm-hmm.
And, when I was taking that step, everything suddenly shut down.
Mm-hmm.
Suddenly shut down. So even what I was working on shut down for an entire year.
Yeah.
And salon shut down. And
that was your first year of...
That I was I found my space. I knew where I wanted to be. I figured out what path I was going to take with funding, which was, as you can imagine, starting out from the very bottom as a single parent was one of the biggest from
hills. Southwest Detroit, which we both share.
Yes,
our hometown.
Yeah. So not a lot of opportunity in the beginning, or even hope for opportunity in the beginning.
And I think that people like you and I are blessed to be in a position that we are in, because I feel like often when you come from a community where you're not spoon-fed knowledge and information on how to be successful, you're basically just left to figure it out on your own. Mm-hmm. You're forced to make all the mistakes so that way future generations can learn through your mistakes. Mm-hmm. So I kind of see it as a true blessing in disguise, because somebody has to do it,
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't do it, it's just going to continue to repeat itself, history over and over and over again,
Yes.
What has been the most surprising thing that you've learned about yourself since your entrepreneurial journey?
That's a great question. Well, a lot of the things I will say that I thought would be good, characteristics that I knew that I already had, that I thought this would be great if I was in business.
In what way?
I guess I can't think of specific examples right now, but there are certain just aspects of my personality that I thought would suit what I'm doing. I'm kind of now seeing them through and learning how to harness them to utilize them in the proper channels to help with what I'm doing.
I'll say for me, the biggest thing that I've learned is having the confidence in your vision. We're often told no, do this. This is the way you do it. This is the way it's supposed to be done. So you almost suppress those God-given gifts for so many years that it starts to become generational, And I think that when I started to kind of tap into more of my ideas and my thoughts and how I would approach certain projects, or, nothing's too crazy, that's when I really started to realize the power of the gift that we're giving,
Yeah, absolutely. That is what I mean. And it's even small things or little aspects of my personality that were just naturally there, that now I'm like, okay, I can apply this and utilize it and benefit from it. And just, what you can really accomplish if you just do it and believe in yourself.
That's the big thing right there, is just
doing
do
it. I mean, I laid there with these ideas and it was like a situation where I just knew, and that's hard. I know for a lot of people, it takes a long time to figure out what you even really want to do.
But then on the same token, I feel like a lot of people think they have to get to a certain point before they can do it.
Yeah.
And it's like, really, you just do it. You got to
just do it.
Yeah. You got to.
Even if it's a huge idea and you don't know how you're going to do it, you just have to do it. There's
100%.
There's a Martin Luther King quote that I can never exactly recite, but it has to do with not being able to see the full staircase, but you can see this next step in front of you. So you just keep taking the next step and the next step until eventually you're there.
Yeah. Often, or you might have to build it, the staircase,
Yeah.
And the thing too that I've gotten comfortable with is just allowing myself to make mistakes in front of the public, because I feel like I've feared that for so long. If I fail or if I look stupid on camera, or if I, a lot of people don't know that before 2023, I didn't post a single video, selfie, picture, nothing of myself since I was a kid. I was a private, introverted, always behind the camera. And then when I started to realize, I'm like, who cares? Just have fun. Let yourself be visible and share your gift with the world. And that's when stuff started to become. And then also, like you mentioned earlier, manifesting.
Yeah.
Like what you want.
Yeah.
That's huge.
Yeah. I was in a space before I started planning all of this where I felt like I was really like out of my element, and not in a good way. Like I was like kind of felt like the atmosphere I was in I was regressing, and it was just I didn't identify with it.
Was this before you opened?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yeah, but kind of what pushed me into the plan to do it. And I remember telling myself all the time through that process, I just want to be unapologetically myself every day. Every day. I haven't mastered the on-camera part yet, but
you're gonna get there.
But yeah.
So would you say that's what drove you to starting Hudson Styling Co? Is just being unapologetic? Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. I worked in different salons, and I really like a team-based atmosphere. I worked from a studio at home by myself too. I did that, not necessarily because that was a dream or something I wanted to do. It's a common
startup.
But I had to do that while I was figuring out how I was going to make the salon happen. Yeah. And I prefer to be on a team, but there was no team or no salon or no atmosphere that I identified with that I really loved, that, shared the values that I had, or even shared very strong values, or upheld strong values. And it just wasn't, it didn't exist. So
you created it.
So I am making it.
And part of that creation, when I visited your salon, you had mentioned that a lot of the fixtures inside of the building are movable, they're custom pieces. Tell me a little bit about that process, because I think creating an experience for your audience, for your clientele, is such an important part to a brand's success. How did you approach that when you started?
I had a lot of ideas already just from being in the industry for so long and being in different spaces, different salon spaces.
Are you one of those people that you would like take pictures and save them into folders, and like one day you knew this, like you were gonna?
I did that once I started planning, yeah. And what a fun process. One of the things I think about a lot now is how busy I am with running the business and the day-to-day tasks of that. And sometimes it feels like I'm getting away from the creativity that in the work that I do. The fun part. Yeah, that I set out for to begin with, or kind of envisioned myself really growing into this amazing, hairstylist. And now I find myself just working more on business things, and it makes it harder to focus on that stuff. But I can't also have to remember that that whole design process was creative and was a creation from my mind and a piece of my art in itself. So that space really is my art, you know, and a lot of thought went into it, a lot. And it was, honestly, thinking back on it, it was kind of effortless, the things, because I had all of that information stored in my mind. So when it came time to choose fixtures or choose the layout or where it was, I had, you know, architects that helped me design the space, but it was very much, you know, no, that doesn't make sense that way. I would rather have it that way. So all of our furniture was made, all of the main pieces of furniture, our front desk, our retail shelving, our communal seating table, and all of our stations were made by a company called Workshop Detroit. And they make all of their...
Where are they located? I feel like I've seen that sign before.
It is, I can't remember the location exactly. It's a really small little warehouse that's ducked off.
What's it called again?
Workshop Detroit.
Workshop Detroit.
Yeah. So they do a lot of custom tables and pieces like that. This was a pretty unique project, I think, for them. And they did a great job, but they make all of their furniture from reclaimed wood that came from buildings in Detroit that were torn down. So every piece of furniture that we have is made from reclaimed materials. And it's a really cool little stamp on every piece that has the address of the building that the wood came from. So that's one little nod to our sustainability features that we have at the salon.
And, you know, I want to say, like you mentioned that you just knew. I think that's the gift.
Yeah.
Like the thing that we suppress so much is like, people often say to me, like, how do you know to do that? I'm like, I don't know how to describe it. I just know.
Yeah.
You know?
It's like a frequency. Like once you tap into that frequency, you just kind of ride the wave and ride it along. And it really was, I just really knew. I struggle. You struggle for so long before you figure out what you really want to do. And I always wanted that feeling. But it was, and it's hard to imagine when you don't know what you want to do yet that could happen. But it was like an electric feeling.
It's almost like it's connected to your purpose, you know?
Yeah.
It's like
but that's the way that you move forward without questioning. I really had no question.
Yeah.
And actually with hairstyling as well. That was just kind of an epiphany I had. It sounds so cheesy, but I really like sat up in bed at night like, oh my God, I need to do hair.
Yeah.
What am I thinking? Why didn't I already think of this?
I wish more people like talked like that, because it's so common. You know, I sit up in bed and I'll have an idea and I'll be like, oh man, this is so good. You gotta start writing it down. And it's like, it's almost like, I'd kind of describe it as like, whoever, you know, people believe in, like God, the universe talking to you. You know, when you get these ideas, it's just like God, and it's really important. Like some people, you know, like the term manifestation, or prayer, you're communicating your desires. And then when these ideas come to your head, it's the response, you know? So I think that it's never should be, oh, this is just a coincidence, or, oh, you just got lucky. No, it's divine.
It is divine. Yeah.
Yeah. So you mentioned you were looking at a few different locations. What drew you to Corktown?
That's another one of those things.
Yeah.
It's just
because you grew up in Southwest Detroit, which is right down.
I spent my childhood in Southwest Detroit. We moved around a lot, all over Metro Detroit. My dad lived around the block from the house that we grew up in until he passed, and so that's a neighborhood that's really dear to me. And oddly enough, my brother-in-law is the chef at Otavavia. He opened the restaurant across the street from the salon with them 15 years ago. So that was also just pure coincidence. I promise I was not doing that on purpose.
You know, it's so wild because the amount of times that I've tried to say the name of that restaurant to somebody, I'm always like, oh, Arawarara.
Yeah, it happens a lot. Otavavia is 8th Street in Italian.
Oh,
so
wow.
It's on the corner of 8th Street in
Such a great
Michigan.
restaurant.
Yeah, it's wonderful.
Delicious food.
Yeah. Yeah, so that was, it just was one of those serendipitous things that I don't know, the other spaces were like, oh, the parking, or oh, I don't know who's going to find us over here, or there's no street signage, or, and it's just that area was so quaint, and there's so much residential development going on. It was really crucial
booming
part
area.
of my
Yeah.
my plan. I mean, even it's grown even more now since we opened almost 3 years ago. But having a location close to homes and close to work is kind of essential. It's the two places that people like to either, go somewhere that's convenient and easy when they're at home, or when they're leaving work, or things like that. So,
did you think about that when you were searching? I mean, I'm sure you were, but I'm curious about your mindset in that moment. Were you because I'll explain how my brain works. I think about traffic. I count cars on how many cars pass. Because for me, like, my marketing mind turns on, and I'm like, well, if we did this here, how impactful would it be? Did you think about like all of that when you were going through the process, or did you have somebody on your team that was advising that to you in terms of like traffic, or did you just kind of like?
Well, I've been in Detroit my whole life. I worked in Greektown for a long time before I started doing hair, so I was really familiar with just how downtown functions, or at least how it used to function. It's a different city now, but I kind of have my ear, to the ground for that stuff too. And I remember looking for a new salon to work at, and there was one that was downtown. And when I went to interview, I was late for my interview because I had to park in a garage, and I had to walk there, and it was on the second story, and there was no signage outside, and I couldn't find it. And it was just
the experience.
I'm like, nobody wants to do that once a month to get their hair done. Nobody wants to go. I don't like going downtown. I mean, this is like a neighborhood service that is like got to be convenient for people.
It's a full scope experience. I think about, there's a coffee shop on this corner. I'm like, where are people going to park? There's no parking lot. If you pay $5 and you got to go pay $10 for a coffee, like, nobody's going to do that.
Right.
I think it's so important to have that kind of full scope mentality when you're in the process of like starting anything new,
Yeah. And I knew I wanted to be downtown-ish, not necessarily downtown. And I was familiar with this area in the parking because of going to Ottawa for so many years. So I knew there was free street parking on Michigan Avenue, all of the street parking around it, and I never had a problem parking over there. So that was really a big draw for me, honestly, parking was. And so far we're still in good shape with that.
Yeah. So Aveda being something that is heavily focused on like natural. And I know that like around the time 2020, everybody was going through this kind of like mind shift of what we eat, health-wise, And then we all saw like there was this huge surge on social media about like all these things that are trending in terms of like castor oil and all these different things. I'm sure for you've been in the industry long enough to know like what you should consume and what you shouldn't in terms of like, hair health. What are like some of the common things that you consume daily or tell your clients about to help kind of transfer that level of insight and knowledge of this is how you keep your hair healthy. This is how you keep your hair, growing and strong.
Gut health is so important to the whole entire function of your whole body. So keeping that in check is always number one. Part of that journey, I learned how to make my own bone broth, and that's rich in minerals and collagen. Collagen is probably the best thing that you can eat to nurture your.
And you get that
hair
through
and
bone broth? Wow. So collagen and
minerals, vitamins, keeping your body just keeping your body healthy.
Yeah.
Healthy hair is a sign of good health. And when I was having struggles with health, I was deficient in nutrients, and I wasn't eating foods that I should. My nails got brittle and thin, and they wouldn't grow. They were breaking. So just really inner health, body health.
Yeah, I feel like the body talks to us just like the universe does. If you don't listen,
signs. It's like the lights in your car. And if you ignore them for too long, it gets worse.
And then gut health, I mean, your gut is your second brain.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah,
that's
that's
huge.
where everything is. Yeah, everything starts there. A lot of my symptoms were neurological. It took me a long time to figure out that it was my gut health that was affecting me.
I'm so curious. What like, do you mind sharing a little bit more about that? Like, what was it? What do you do for it? Like, because
Yeah,
that's a common thing.
yeah. Well, I'm not a doctor, but I have done a lot of research, and it's really, there's a lot of toxins in our food. It's not necessarily the food itself that we have, but it's the way that it's processed, the way it's grown, and the way it's delivered to us. And the most, readily available foods are the worst for your body. So, I don't eat any gluten. I don't eat any dairy. I don't eat eggs.
Wow.
It all. I try to eat everything, organic as much as possible, because my body's just really sensitive to the chemicals that are in our food now. And I really believe that it's not, that my body doesn't like wheat when I eat it. I really think it's what's in the wheat here in America. There are a lot of chemicals that are in our foods that are completely banned in Europe. They won't put in food, so all of that has a negative impact on your health.
Yeah, the processing of food
Yeah.
is the cause of a lot of crap.
Definitely. And almost nothing we're eating is fresh. And a lot of the foods that we eat don't have any nutrients in them at all.
So when we first met at your salon, you had mentioned your interest in fashion, like New York Fashion Week. You had mentioned you had gone there a few times during New York Fashion Week. And I mean, that's something that I've heard several times growing up. New York Fashion Week, New York Fashion Week. Why is that something that most of us know, or we've heard about it, but don't have any idea, like, what does it mean? Because I know that part of our conversation, you had mentioned that you wanted to essentially replicate what was going on in New York Fashion Week, but here in Detroit, and kind of be in the forefront of that, which I think is so cool. And I can't wait to see you do it. But what is it about New York Fashion Week? Why is it so big?
Well, it's big in New York because it's been an event for a very long time. And it's not just one event. It's a week. It's an occasion all through New York, all over New York. There are different events, but it's just kind of that one designated week that fashion designers present their collections.
It's almost like exhibitions going to one location, like a bunch of artists getting together and just having, what an exhibition, like a bunch of exhibitions, but it's like moving art.
It is, yeah.
Yeah,
which is maybe why it's that type of occasion where there's so much emotion behind it, and there's so many people doing things and going there and being a part of it.
Because it blew up in Miami, the forget what it's called. It's Art Basel.
Yeah.
Every year they do Art Basel, and it's, I mean, for me, in my mind, I think like that's what I best equate it to, New York Fashion Week and Art Basel, because it's a bunch of people that appreciate creativity getting together and celebrating it.
Yeah, that's really what it is. It's just become such an institution for New York.
So my next question, how are you going to make it happen here?
Oh, well, I don't know. I can't see the staircase yet. I'm still building it. But I just want to stay connected and stay focused on fashion that's going on in Detroit. I know that, New York is a different caliber than we will
whole different
have here.
world.
Yeah, will ever be. But there's so many great creative things happening in the city. So just I'm really staying in tune with that and connected to what's happening.
You even mentioned too, when we met at your salon, that you can move a lot of the stations around, creating a space for fashion students to come and like paint that picture a little bit some more for, anybody watching. Because I think that's a cool concept, like getting creative people from different industries together under one roof and just brainstorming, bouncing ideas off of each other.
Yeah. I will say, going to Fashion Week for my first season, and I do runway styling with Aveda. I'm on Aveda's team that does the hair styling at the runway shows that hire Aveda.
I'm curious. what does that mean, like runway styling? Like, do they
Mhm.
give you a style, like the designer gives you a style and they say, this is what we want it to look like, and then you guys bring it to life?
Yeah, well, so we'll have a lead on our team that maps out the looks with the designer, and then we show up and execute all the looks on the models
Wow.
before they walk at the show.
How long does that take?
Oh, it varies. It depends. Um, sometimes they're so different. Some
What's the longest like some model sat in your chair before going on the runway?
um, I don't know about one model specifically, but we did do Puma a couple years ago, and June Ambrose was the designer, and it was a huge production. They had dancers that needed their hair done. They had, celebrity models that were there, and I think there were 88 models in total. It's usually around 20 at a show, somewhere around there. Um, and we were there, I think, for 10 hours.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what was that experience like for you? Like, because I know I could sense through our conversation that it was just like, you want to do this. Like, you
Yeah.
want to continue to do this. Like, what was that about that experience that got you so excited about recreating that here in Detroit?
I think just seeing it there, it's just, it's that, but on the highest level of quality, So
Mm-hmm.
I think seeing that and thinking how great it would be to see that at home or to be
Mm-hmm.
able to be a part of that, but at home, it's all awesome and wonderful to go to New York
Mm-hmm.
and see all those things. But I would love to see that for us
Yeah.
here.
Yeah.
And that's takes a lot and a lot of people and a lot of different things to get there.
Yeah.
So it's hard to see how it's all going to come together, but they're already, just in this little renaissance that we've had going on these last few years, there's already been different organizations popping up that are more focused on connecting local designers
Wow.
and making runway shows happen.
I think it's just something about like people getting together and getting excited about creativity.
Yeah.
Like
Yeah.
whether it inspires what you wear, whether it
Mhm.
inspires how you present yourself.
Yeah.
I think it's so, and I feel like that's the reason why a lot of people like to travel, because when you're not able to get recharged here,
Yeah.
you have to go somewhere else to
Mhm.
recharge and then come back and continue what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah, but that to your point about the salon, that's kind of, I would love to see the salon be a creative hub for people working in the fashion industry, but any creative people in Detroit.
Do you have like a vision for that? Like, do you have like a kind of idea of the format of what you would like that to look like?
I know that one thing that I would like to do is be able to utilize the space for photo shoots,
Mm,
whether it's fashion shoots specifically or whatever. But we have a ton of amazing lighting. The entire corner of our space is all windows with natural lighting. So during the daytime, it's just like, it's amazing for photographs.
mm.
And like you mentioned, I designed the space so that all of the furniture is mobile, just because that's, I don't know, commitment to nailing something to the floor just makes me a little
But
anxious.
it was super genius that you had that foresight of doing that, because I think when you have a multifunctional space,
Mhm.
it just creates so, like, I think for a creator, it's just so much more just liberating,
Yeah,
you know,
yeah,
because you don't feel, like you just said, you don't feel tied down,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And they're working on getting that film tax credit back to Michigan, so that way a lot more film production will start happening here
Okay,
again.
that's
So
great.
yeah,
Love
so
that.
it'd be a perfect place
Yeah,
to put on Peer Space.
yeah, yeah, yeah. Yes, that's something that I would, like to get working on sooner than
Mhm.
later. But there we can, that's the beauty of having a multifunctional space. Anything that we can conjure up
Yeah,
that makes sense for the plan and the vision, and that will benefit us and whoever we're working with, as we can really do anything.
yeah. So I want to shift a little bit to the industry as a whole, because the beauty industry is such a powerful industry with billions of dollars generated every year. I'm curious about your perspective on what you see today online, whether it's through TikTok, Instagram. You know, you see a lot of videos that go viral, and you're like, oh yeah, I understand why that went viral. Or you see someone, you're like, what? Why? What have been some things that you've seen other creators do or other salons do? People that you just want to, give some flowers to or, respect to and say, I think that what they're doing is amazing. And it could also just be like a trend too. Like if because one thing right now that's trending in terms of hair is, I forget what it's called. It's a specific haircut that a lot of people are wearing right now. And people are coming up with challenges around this haircut. So like kind of the setup format is they'll go to the salon, present the picture, then some time will happen between, the laps, whether it's the salon stylist or the barber putting the what is that thing called?
The cape?
The cape. The cape. And then it like flashes between, the camera and then it reveals the hairstyle. And it's quick, it's instant. You're able to kind of get that gratification.
I have one on my page and it was maybe like a 5 or 6 hour appointment.
Really?
In like a 30-second video.
Yeah. And that's really honestly all it is. I think that people are trying to get like a quick summation of a long process. Yeah. So what are some challenges or trends or something that you've seen that you have been paying attention to?
There's so many. I feel like they change so often. There's always kind of a new thing. Before and afters are always huge. Tutorials start to finish are always nice.
What do you feel like is missing? Kind of like the behind the scenes insight, like what people aren't seeing that you think people would receive really well.
For me personally, I guess all of these little details that you wouldn't really know about my business unless you kind of dig in or are told or explained it to.
Do you think that there's enough information or content out there about or for entrepreneurs or creators or the people actually doing, as we mentioned earlier, the not so fun stuff, like in terms of education about how to how to run a successful salon, or because a lot of these influencers are young people. They're not really running businesses. They're just showing like the flashy part.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I guess on social media, not necessarily. I did do some training with Aveda. They have a business academy beforehand. But what I really found was like that most of the information that's out there is for already either open or established businesses and ways to improve them. But there was not a lot of information of starting from the beginning with nothing. So I guess that would be the gap that I found.
Yeah. I think a course would be something that like it pulls a lot of traffic for the education part of it. I found an agency, they had mentioned that once they started doing courses, it changed the traffic landscape for them. Because people, I think, want a structured, formatted package of how to do anything. I mean, that's why we watch YouTube videos and tutorials. But I think that when you have it packaged and pretty and present it to the world, a lot of people start coming to kind of get an idea of like, all right, well, what are you about? What is this? And I think courses are honestly going to be like the new, or not new, but the next huge wave for actual creators that are not just like creating short, flashy videos, but have knowledge and insight to share with the world.
Yeah. I have seen those out there as well. And I think those are great. But every business is so unique and has its own set of challenges, and those courses are great, but you still have to have that ingenuity and creativity to be able to take that information and apply it to your business and in a useful and purposeful way that benefits what you're doing.
So what are some things on your to get list, like things that you want to get to, but you just like time hasn't opened up yet?
As far as
creativity, business, entrepreneurship, life.
That's a long list. Really just getting the salon independent. I think that's another misconception of entrepreneurship. Opening the doors. It doesn't, like you said, if you build it, they will come, but they don't come right away, and they don't know that you're there, and they don't, and there's no team, and there's no, you have to build all of these things as you go. So one of my biggest goals is just getting the team and the salon fully independent and functional. Self-sustaining,
Yeah.
yes. So that I'm able to focus a little bit more on that,
So
my
then,
creative side of it.
yeah. So then once you got that time,
Yeah.
like what do you want to focus on?
I would with all of those that work that I just created for myself in our conversation earlier.
The fashion and all,
So organizing all of the fashion events and connecting with all the people at the salon, doing more editorial styling in the salon or editorial styling in the city for different publications and different, really honing in on my craft and specializing in cutting and styling. In a lot of other states, salons are specializing atmosphere.
What does that mean?
Most of the time, and I don't know why it's like this in other places and not here. And it seems like it's typically, California, New York, bigger cities where they do this. But most of the time, stylists either specialize in cutting and styling or color, and it's separated. So everywhere that I've ever worked in Michigan or ever, learned about in Michigan is a generalist atmosphere. So everybody does every part of the service from start to finish, the cut, the style, the color.
Do you think that's just because it's more effective that way, or?
I'm really paying a lot of attention to that and studying that. But the one thing that I can say is when you're dividing your time in what you practice, you can't
master it.
I mean, you can, but
it just will take longer.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Maybe you're not, taking one area as far as you could, or you're not going to get as masterful in that area as you could, or maybe you can. Maybe,
is that something you look to enforce at your salon? Having like people that are specialized in one?
Potentially. We do have some people that are just naturally very talented in certain areas, and then it kind of just turns into that's what everybody's requesting them for. So that ends up being what they're practicing and their specialty. They're not limited to that, and they're able to offer other services as well and learn new things. But I don't know. I'm still kind of feeling that out. I definitely think there's something to it. But also, I think there's something to not limiting yourself to one area, too.
What would be one piece of advice that you would share to anyone that is looking to pursue a career in the beauty industry?
I would say make sure that you're passionate about it. Because I have even seen myself a lot of times, maybe people are doing it for, for whatever reason they're doing it for.
How it looks to other people.
Yeah, maybe, or any reason that's not just truly, this was my calling, I love it so much, this is what I knew, this was what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. And I think a lot of times that people might think, based on their perception of what it means to be a booked and busy hairstylist, that's what they want. And then when they start to get really busy, they feel really overwhelmed, and because it's a really hard job. It's really hard. There's a whole customer service, aspect of it. You have to be personable. You have to be social. You have to be technically strong. You have to be creative at the same time. There's all these different.
And especially if you're running it, you have to know how to manage a team. You have to know how, I'm speaking from just a hairstylist, but yes, I do all those things and all the other things too with it. But even just behind the chair, just as a stylist, I think it can be really overwhelming. There's a lot of energy exchange. You're one-on-one with your guests for sometimes 2 or 3 hours, and you're you're filling the space and conversation, and it can sometimes take a lot of energy out of you. So I think just really understanding what it really takes and being sure, because
it takes a long time to get there, to become busy. And it's hard work.
Mm-hmm. Very hard work. So what is one thing that, and I'll be more specific about the type of audience, what is one thing that anyone that is getting ready or thinking about opening up a salon brand, what is one thing that they should know?
Mm-hmm. It has nothing to do with you. And you're going to spend a lot of time nurturing other people more than yourself. And which is okay. But it's definitely something to know ahead of time, because I like I mentioned, set out with a lot of goals, personal goals for myself as a hairstylist. And, quickly realized that there were a lot of other things I had to accomplish first. And a lot of them involve other people. It's people business. We have customers and you have staff. So managing a strong team and making sure that they're all successful is crucial to your own success.
Yeah. Great advice. Well, thank you so much for being here. I appreciate your time, your talent, your creativity.
Thank you.
And I can't wait to see Detroit Fashion Week happen soon.
Yes. We are going to get some things going.
Exciting times.
Yeah.
All right.
Thanks, Rob.